group that I know who most everybody is.
Action.
Okay. My name is Mark Niemeyer. I've been at Skolton's since Dwayne moved from Everson, and I was at Keels before that. Basically, I've been dealing with forage since I was yay big. Grew up on a dairy, did custom cutting, went to work, worked on Gale choppers, John Deere choppers. We were the John Deere unofficial self-propelled dealer for a long time. We got Kloss. Kloss is awesome, that's all you can say. What we're going to cover in this booth is 494 Accelerator, 492, 491, 489, whatever you want, back to pretty much everything that you guys have got. Let's see, Bart's 494, Taven's 494. What do you guys got? Oh, you're with him? Oh, okay. You got that. You guys are
Deer.
880?
Deer.
Deer? What? Oh, okay. Okay. That's good. Well, welcome to our
Looking for
show.
a reason to change
Hope you enjoy it. 494 Accelerator essentially is that accelerator been on steroids for 2 years. The bearings are the same design, the rotor is the same design. The paddles for a 494 will go in a 492. Same paddle, same width, same everything. The only paddle that is weird is the 494s have an option now of a liner. Anybody Eastern Washington, Eastern Oregon? Okay, you are. A liner that'll go inside inside this can. It's a 2-piece liner. Well, it's actually a 4-piece liner. When you put that in, it uses a special paddle. The distance from the bolt hole to the tip is shortened up to accommodate that width. Other than that, any paddle from that will go in this, and other than the short paddles, so they saved an issue with making pieces. Paddles in this, what we've got in here, we got what they call the HD finger, which is the paddle that we're telling everybody to run. This one also has the HD flat, which is completely flat paddle, $700 a set. HD regulars, or HD finger, $200 a set. HD flat takes a special bolt, just because it's so much thicker. Biggest difference is when you put them in and adjust them, you got to give yourself 8 millimeters on this paddle to the back. Other than that, they adjust the same, they go in the same. They're the same.
What about the wear life? Do they justify the cost?
Actually, what we've got locally, we've got somebody running 2 and 2. 2 fingers, 2 flats. And by doing that, they've got 3 machines. So what they do is they take a set for this machine, and they're doing 2 machines. So those paddles last longer. I don't know what it does to the other ones. I can't imagine it does much. But they're custom guys, and they're all conditioned chopping. And if you get some tough blowing, where you might want to mess with these just a little bit, suck that thing right back to the 1 millimeter allotment, right almost on the wall. Maybe they're better for that. I don't know. They just decided to do that. They thought it was a good idea, so they're doing it. Everybody knows how to check the blower bearings, right? Or accelerator bearings? Perfect. Everybody know why this is an accelerator rather than a blower? Any ideas why it's an accelerator rather than a blower?
Does it take the feed all the way around it?
Because the feed doesn't go all the way around it, exactly. Most blowers, if you think about them, change the direction of the feed. The feed comes into it with an auger or somehow, and it changes the direction, and it carries it against the band. The feed is coming, well, I don't know exactly what the speed is on that. On 492, The feed is coming off the accelerator at 90 some miles an hour, or off the KP. It's in the book over there, but it's coming out of that accelerator at 152. So all it is doing is accelerating the flow. Okay. To check the bearings in this, who wants to be helpful? Larry, come in.
Brian, step up.
Larry, come in.
I'm coming. Got it.
Don't break my board though. Push down on that and see if that bearing feels somewhat tight. Feels pretty good? Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm going to loosen the belt up this time before you check. Go for it, my friend. How's it feel now? That will give you a real full sense of oh crud. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Always loosen off their main drive belt. Does everybody know how to loosen the main drive belt? Alan's loosened his more than once, I know that.
Yeah.
Okay, Larry, you've done it on the other. Loosen the main drive. Yeah. You have. Perfect. Okay.
You have it.
494 adjust the rotor. The bearings are mounted on a stud through the plate, through two of these on either side of the can. The bearing sits on top of a piece of UHMW. The thing that holds these bearings against the sidewall and holds them tight, each bearing's held on with four of these little springs. They go on, tighten up. Yeah, you guys might run into this. When you go to put this together, you want to use red Loctite, putting the studs into the bearing. Make sure it's set up before you go to put the thing together. Put these springs on, draw them down so they bottom out. They say torque them up to like 38, but just make sure they're bottomed out and then back the nut off one full turn and you're done. When you go to slide this on the old machines, to adjust the rotor, you had 4 bolts holding each bearing block in, top and bottom here, and you have these, and then you use the bolt here to slide it over. 494, being it's mounted on this plastic with a spring, you just take and turn this one bolt, and it'll slide. Nice, huh? Yeah. Part of the reason they did that is there is an option 494 for electronic accelerator adjust.
Oh no.
Anybody know why you want to adjust that on the go or ever adjust it? You could squeeze it that way. The biggest savings is in corn. Yard that thing all the way to the front as far as you can get it. Doesn't take much to blow corn. Remember, it's coming off that KP at
90 some miles.
Yeah, 90 or better. So you really don't need all that much force to it. So, and it does take horsepower. You will see a difference. Any questions on the 494 accelerator? We're going to go through changing the bearings and stuff on that one. No questions? Okay. Anybody ever done this project, changing the bearings on the 492, 489, all those?
Nope.
Alan has, right? You put bearings in yours?
No, I sent it to you one year.
You're going to see what I'm doing? Okay.
Next one's mine.
The thing most got to remember with this is where this thing is sitting, we're cheating a lot because you can't get from here to here without going around there. So you try to save yourself as many trips as you can, okay? Okay, when this is all tightened up, the pulley's held on by 2 wedges and a clamp, right? Take the clamp loose. Take a sledgehammer. A sledgehammer, an 8-pound sledge, okay, and a piece of pipe that's bigger than these tapered wedges. I'll pop that wedge off and I'll send it around to you guys. Put this over top of it, so you knot on that wedge, and you take a sledgehammer and you wail on that thing. You can hit it about 3 times, and then well, did I get it? but you will hear it when it pops free. You know, when you're pounding on something and all of a sudden it bang, 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 thud. Well, you're going to get that same sensation, and it's going to pop free. And this collar is going to, this wedge is going to come loose. Once that wedge comes loose, you can pull the pulley off. Now, remember, this is set up to do flat rate stuff, so the pulley comes right off. It's not gonna when you go to do it. It's gonna be pretty sticky on there. This particular unit, this is 494 pulley for the old style shaft. I should point that out. That's a new shaft for 494, twin engine, and currently in the 12s and the 13s use that shaft other than the 930. That's 55 millimeter on the end. This is 40.
Yeah.
Considerably heavier, okay? These have a notch to put a puller in. Don't put a puller on here and try to pull against that outside wedge. You got a wedge saying I'm not going, and you got a pulley saying yes you are, and I'm going to crush it together. It'll just stay there until the pulley breaks usually. So you take that deal and keep pounding until it pops free, and it will pop free eventually. Okay. Sometimes to get the pulley off, I've had them really stuck, and you can't get in there much to pry on them, and you can't put a puller on the edge of a pulley. So I've got a series of short, half-inch fine thread bolts with a nut, and they go up by length just a little bit, and you can put them in here and against the flank part of the pulley here, and push on there and there, and just a little bit at a time, and all of a sudden you'll notice that it starts turning a little freer. It just came off that back wedge. And then it still may be snug. If it's dragging when you go to do all this, if it's really tight, it's going to be on this keyway. It's dragging just a little bit. Okay, for all intents and purposes, this seal is in here right now, but I don't want to spend the money for a seal for today. I'm saving money on you guys. Okay, we're going to unbolt this bearing. We're trying to unbolt the bearing.
You got it.
It's in there? Ah, there it is. Thank you. Somebody from the last group decided to tighten it up. Okay. You can pull this stuff out before you unbolt it. I was getting ahead of myself. Pull the other wedge off. You got a pair of wedges. On these wedges, if you go to pull them off and they got a burr on the edge, because you usually try to reach in with a screwdriver and pry on them, get rid of that burr. That burr will bite you. Do not put never sees on these wedges. They cause all kinds of issues. Okay? Behind here is a seal ring that rides inside this seal. Keeps the grease in there. Okay? Behind that is a bearing and a holder. This bearing, pass it around, don't knock it out of line. That bearing floats in there, it goes up against the snap ring. Okay. That's where we get the movement, because when you're chopping and you hit a slug, your engine bogs down, everything kind of, well, this can is going to do this. It's going to flex just a little bit. And if they didn't have an unloading spot for that pressure, it'd take the bearings out. So that's where they unload it. Previously, they did that over here. They had a two-piece bearing that slid in a holder. After about the second season, those would seize up, and so they decided this was a better way to go. After the bearing comes a radius collar with a spiral ring on it. And as this thing is spinning, it's pushing any trash that's trying to get in, making it go that way. Any excess grease that's coming in from the greaser, it's going to spin it in.
Two separate pieces or one?
This is one piece. And there's a couple different versions of this.
Oh, there
There's
is?
a couple different versions, but this, the spiral and this sleeve should be all one piece.
Was there a
Some of them don't have this indentation in them. Some of them are only that long. Have to look at it. But it should look like this. And this one has this spring inside of here that will actually fit inside that bearing housing to try to keep trash out. It'll still let the grease climb out. Okay? Now, that being said, I'm cheating on this, and it's a tool that I use in the shop when I'm doing it. Perfect, isn't it? There's, and you guys can probably see, there's a piece of 2x4 in here with a metal plate. Those hold that rotor in position. And you got to remember, when it's in the machine, it wants to roll out the back because everything's slow. Okay. Take that piece of iron, and on this, I better put this back together first. Okay, we got this thing on. We got. Gonna take and put this thing back together. We got that side is still in its original position. Before we can put this together, we've got to take this collar loose. Have you guys been through Bob's? You guys started Bob's now? The shear thing, you haven't been there? You started at Bridge. Okay. You need to take this loose, pound on the center, pop it loose. It's a taper bearing in the sleeve. Knock that loose so this rotor can float. I got movement there? Okay. You want to shove the rotor this way, put the bearing back on. And like I said, this is cheated. This is really animated for how stuff doesn't slip together that easy. It does go together easy, but it's not as easy. As you can tell, this rotor's had a problem. Anybody ever broke a paddle?
Yeah. Broke a lot of stuff.
Hey, that actually looks like our old one.
I sent a bolt and a whole blade right up through there.
Yeah.
I know we had a bunch of holes in the back.
Okay. We got all 4 bolts in there. Pretend. When you put this back on, the best way to do it is you'll have the seal already put in. Put the sleeve in it. When you slide it on, slide the whole works in as one chunk. But it's not together, so should have put it together, but it's easier to see the bearing this way. Okay, you got this in there. Holding it straight.
Is there a torque spec for those 4 bolts?
For the 4 bolts, 56. We put those 3 washers back on. Took 3 washers out, you put 3 washers back in. What sets, anybody know what sets the position of this pulley? This is kind of an interesting one. This pulley has got multiple choices of washers. You can put as many washers in there as you want. The alignment laser is nice for doing, if you question it. Put in whatever you start with. The thing that's going to put this pulley in the proper position is this tool right here. You put your seal sleeve in, put that tool over there. Take a piece of pipe that just slips over the shaft. Take the cap and the bolt.
So no ruler and tape measure off the side?
Not anymore.
Okay, sorry.
Used to be. We're going to draw that up and torque it to 150 foot-pounds.
And that's what the flange bolts are already all tightened up all
These
the way
are all
around.
tightened up.
All the way.
That side's still floating.
Okay.
You're going to draw this back, okay? Remember, we're still sliding on that bearing.
So how much the torque?
Okay, we've taken
How
this
much?
bearing up.
How much torque did you put on that?
150.
150.
Okay. We'll pretend that we've just changed this bearing, that we just stuck it together. It's killing my hand, take it off and on. We're going to put it back together, but we're going to leave this loose. Okay. You make sure that this tool is flat against that housing. And then you put the special tool again on this nut, and you can torque it up to 56 foot-pounds. Okay? Take and give this bearing holder a little bit of a tap. Don't go crazy. Just give it a tap, just jar things a little bit. Check to make sure it's at 56. 56 is critical, not 55. And then you go a quarter of a turn, or less than 75 degrees, so slightly less than a quarter turn. So I know why they're fussy about 56, but they go to that and then a quarter turn. When you're at your quarter turn, if you can't get the stake to bend over on the nut, go tighter, a little bit. Never back it back off. Klaus says, and it's a disputable thing, that when you have these components, wipe them dry. They come, they're a little bit oily, wipe them dry. Put it together. When you go over to Bob's, Bob has his and he says slightly oily. I have to go by what Klaus does. So we're going to torque this up, put it together, lock that all up. This bearing is what holds that pulley in position, because this is fixed. This side's moving. So it determines where it sits on the rotor, in a way. They actually both hold it in place because you're drawing up against this bearing, but it's told us where that bearing sits.
And how long is that pipe in your left hand?
Special tool.
In millimeters or in inches?
Well, inches, please.
A little over 6 1/4. And if somebody is so inclined, we do have instructions for retrofitting this new bearing. Okay, we put our 3 washers back on. Put our wedge in. No, put that all in there. So we've got it all torqued up. It's all pulled tight against the rotor. Now we're going to start stacking it back together. Wedge in. Key. Slip the pulley on. Are we ready to put the next wedge in?
Yeah.
Nope.
Wrong.
We're going to load that pulley against the first wedge. This is what's really changed.
Okay.
We're going to put this all together. We're going to put 150 foot-pounds on this again to lock this pulley on the inner wedge. And if I was a betting person, this is what didn't happen to that one. That's why that bearing went out. Because the bearing spun on the shaft. The bearing was still good when that was taken apart. It spun on the shaft. So they didn't put it together properly. Okay? You pull this up, draw it up, good. Torque it to 150. 150, 152, whatever. The book says 152. Put the next wedge in.
Torque it down and again 150.
With this, yeah, 150 again. Lots of glue Loctite. Put her together. Take the hammer again. Tap on the pulley just a little bit. Don't get crazy. Just tap it a little bit. Pull her down to 152. Done.
Okay, what's the width of the collar?
The collar should be on your machine.
Okay.
That's just the regular cap.
That's just the regular cap.
Off the machine. Any questions on bearings? Oh, one thing I did skip. When you're putting the new bearing in the holder, lay it down or put grease in there. Put the seal in, put the seal sleeve in, and put it on. Because it takes a long time for that greaser to move enough grease to fill that whole cavity.
Special grease.
Gun grease. That's all we use in our machines too. Until you get to those machines, then they had some fancy grease they want you to use.
Well, in my machine, that bearing's greased off the auto.
Yeah, but you got to fill that cavity first.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And if you don't do it, you go, oh, I forgot to do it. You can always go on here with unscrew the line and put a zerk in there and pump it. Any questions on that stuff? Come on, Dale's not writing a stinking thing.
I got a couple.
No questions.
No questions.
Yeah.
So what was so special about your 2x4s?
My 2x4s, okay, they hold it up. They're holding that rotor in place. Because otherwise it's going to fall down. Okay? If you don't have something holding it up, if you don't have anything holding it up, when you put this bearing on or that bearing on, the thing's going to be sitting crooked and you're going to be fighting that when you're lining stuff up. Okay? These are made backwards. The ones that I usually use in the shop are the pedestal, the stop is on the back. And then the nice part about doing it with the spacer is I'm not having to do it today because I'm not sticking all the bolts in. I don't know if anybody even noticed that. I'm not putting all the bolts back in. Is that you can come in with a little pry bar like this. You go between the wood and that back piece of steel and you can walk that rotor up and down with your thumb. Fairly simple. And that's the kind of things you find at about 11:30 at the shop when you're there by yourself looking, who's going to help me? No questions on that?
How many hours do you think that bearing's good for?
That one?
I mean, what's your,
Lots of variables.
yeah,
I'm going to
Yeah, I want a hard and fast number.
lots.
yeah. I mean,
Don't let me on the phone.
Yeah.
just check it once in a while.
Yep,
Hate it.
check them. I'm going to say check your accelerator bearings every other oil change. Take that belt loose, walk on them from both sides. You know, because if you know they're starting to get a little bit loose, you can chop for a couple days or a day until you got a window when you can work on it. But if you wait till that thing's trashing around and it's coming out the side of the can, it's too late. It doesn't take long to back the belt off or get in there with a pry bar and wail on them a little bit and see what's going on.
Do you do bearings matched?
I would say if you got one that's getting loose, you better do them both. They both turn the same amount of revolutions. I'm not going to say that one bearing is better than the other because that's a ball bearing. This is a double opposed roll. I'm not going to say either one's better. But just as a general rule, if you're doing it, you're doing it.
I got a question. You know, if you don't pull off that left tire, you don't know what's going on. You know.
No, you can see it with the left tire on because you can still get in here and pry on it.
Yeah, but all the pulley system, the tightening,
Oh yeah,
and all
all
that.
the stuff
because
that's in there. Yeah.
when I took that tire off and
The
got
first
in
time
there,
you saw it.
oh my gosh.
That's a good point. Another thing that we should bring up is in the system, everybody's kind of seen the side of them except for you haven't, but you got the same thing on your Deere. Coming off the accelerator, you got where the belt tensioner is, you got a couple idlers. Check those bearings once in a while. Hasn't been a big issue. I think the whole time I've been doing this, I can replace 3 sets. That's it.
Only one of them is greasable.
I don't know if any of them are now.
Greasable, only that. Where
Oh, the pivot, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
So it's
Well, my line broke there.
yeah.
My line broke and the bearing
And
never got it.
yours is way different.
Yeah.
Because on his machine, the shaft is way longer, and the belt tensioner pivots off of here too somehow, doesn't it?
Yeah, and there's the
It's got another arm, and
that bearing is up there and I never got no oil.
it's
I
a
mean, that
490,
yeah.
maybe 490 series 880. Okay. Anybody ever put paddles in one of these? Okay, I think I asked that a while ago. You have? Did I show you the easy way to do it? The easier way?
Go ahead.
Put the paddles in. Put the whole set in. Back. Tap them into the center as far as you can. Finger tight. Either go off of the blower back, which is right here. Okay. And so then you gotta, as you get tired of laying like this doing it, or reaching over the top, okay? You need one of Mark's handy Jim Dandy tools here.
See that?
Take the back off, which is only what, 10 bolts? Put this thing on here.
And you got a patent on that.
Oh, you betcha. Silver paint, that's my patent. Bring the rotor out on each side, just tap it out, get in behind it, pull it, whatever, until one paddle touches this tool on each side. That's ground zero. Lock the rotor, and then adjust the other 3 paddles out to match that one. You're gonna be on the money. They all should be the same, because nothing is more frustrating than putting in new bearings, new paddles, we're ready to rip. You hit the field, you hit the switch, and it's, what did I do wrong? All it is the paddles aren't quite.
So that's just a